the federal government has to do something about illegal immigration or immigration reform. Why don't you leave that issue to the federal government, to the Congress?
Well, Senate Bill 285 dealt with the business licensing that state governments have legal authority over. There was a Supreme Court case, United States Supreme Court case, decided in 2011, which clearly reinforced the constitutionality of what my bill does. The language almost verbatim was decided in the Supreme Court as being constitutionally permissible. Because in the 1996 Act, there's a parenthetical that references business licenses. And so I believe, from reading the court case, that is what led the court to come to the conclusion that states like Arizona, states like Missouri, states like Indiana have the authority to regulate the activity through the business licensing process. It's been 5 years. The state of Indiana is spending conservatively in excess of $130 million a year in taxpayer dollars because of the failure of the federal government through health care, through education, and other expenses.
But all these people are getting their taxes deducted from their employers as well. They are contributing to the Social Security.
I agree. I understand the I-10, and I think it's a hypocritical policy that the federal government says you're illegal, leave, but oh, by the way, pay your taxes. I think it's terrible public policy, and I think it's very hypocritical. And I actually saw the notice on the Internal Revenue Service's website many, many years ago, where it basically said if you're unlawfully in the country, you need to get an I-10 number and you need to pay your taxes. I think it's hypocritical. I agree with you on that. Unfortunately, since 2011, activity overseas, not particularly in the Hispanic Latino community, but in other communities, specifically in the Middle East, have led us to a position where there's a great concern about the security in our homeland.
But the border security is not our issue. We are not in the border.
That's right. Border security is not a federal issue. Immigration is considered a federal issue. Courts have spoken. This bill today dealt with it in a roundabout way through the business licensing, which the Supreme Court says you can do that. I believe a lot of folks in the Hispanic Latino community, unlike the representation from Mr. Munoz, I believe his name was.
Well, anyway, there are a lot of people that talk, but now you say that the National Restaurant Association is supporting your bill. But why you just said that?
I said they support E-Verify. I was defending E-Verify. I was going through the comments of the presenters of the committee blasting E-Verify. And I think it's pretty significant that the National Restaurant...
But they are not supporting your bill.
I've not asked anybody to take a position on my bill. I'm not suggesting that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce supports my bill, nor am I suggesting the National Restaurant Association supports my bill. What I am suggesting, which is what they gave in congressional testimony, is both support the mandatory use of E-Verify, which is very different. Which
still has glitches. It's not perfect.
But it's much better than it was in 2008. And E-Verify, in a post-9/11 world, we will always, as a country, have some sort of E-Verify database for our own security reasons to document and record and understand and confirm the legal authorization for people to work. But Congress needs to act. It's been 5 years and they've done nothing in 5 years. And so maybe the states need to rattle the cage a little bit to try to force the issue to make Congress act.
Well, Republicans, your party, has been blocking the immigration reform. Why don't you talk to your peers in Washington?
I have spoken to a number of our congressional delegation, and both parties are in a state of malaise and incompetence when it deals with the area of immigration reform and, quite frankly, national security.
One last question.
Sure.
The Hispanic community sees the Republican legislators, national level and now local level, as people who hate Hispanics. Do Republicans hate Latinos?
Well, my Christian faith teaches me that I'm to love God with all my heart, all my might, all my soul, all my strength, and I'm to love my neighbor as myself. It doesn't say love your...
But that doesn't make sense with what you're doing.
Let me finish. It doesn't say Caucasian neighbor, African American neighbor, Hispanic neighbor. It says neighbor. As an elected,
Do you have illegal immigrants neighbors? There's a lot in Carmel.
there's a lot of illegal immigrants all over the state of Indiana, and we both know that. That does not negate the fact that as an elected official who's answerable to constituents who have concerns about how their government and community operates, as an elected official who has to take an oath of office to both the U.S. Constitution and the Indiana State Constitution, that I don't have a responsibility to advance the cause of national sovereignty and the rule of law. These are basic American principles that have served our country well for over 200 years. And so we have to come up with a way to reconcile the principles of the founding of this country with the current context of what the problems we have are, with illegal immigration.
You think breaking the families apart is going to do it?
I'm not trying to break anybody apart. I'm trying
by having the employers to fire the employees, then you're making people to break apart, to leave the country or find another way to live.
This is a somewhat unfair question because taxpayers didn't invite the intentional breaking of the law by individuals, okay? Taxpayers did not invite that. And so now taxpayers will have to deal with the consequence. Let's talk about some of the employers, and I'm not going to say all employers, but some of the employers of illegal immigrants pay well below market wages, do not provide good working conditions, and do not provide market benefits that legal citizens are entitled to. And so we've created an underground shadow world that is not within the American dream as defined by our founding fathers, but really is modern day American slavery. And so in many ways, the biggest defender for folks that are undocumented or illegal is me, because I've been trying to shine a light on what's been going on in our community, in our state, since 2008. It's wrong to exploit people. It's wrong for businesses to exploit human beings that want the American dream because of cheap labor. That's wrong, and that needs to be confronted. And so if you're asking, am I happy with a possible consequence that families could be broken up because of that? No, I'm not happy about that. Do I think it may be a necessary consequence? Yes, I think it may be a necessary consequence, but it's not something I enjoy. But it's also not something that I invited, nor have taxpayers in Indiana invited.